Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Variant Cast. Today, I have a little bit of a different video for you. I wanted to be talking to you about one of my favorite Christmas classics and the sequel that I never knew that it had. On Christmas Eve, every year growing up, my family and I, we'd open up all of our Christmas Eve pajama pants, sit down, watch a Christmas movie as a family, and for as long as I can remember, that movie has always been National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The movie has been an absolute staple in my family. The movie is filled with hilarious one liners, jokes that are built up over a whole scene and that pay off at the end, while it never feels like you're feeling like you're living in complete Looney Tunes land while you're watching it. The movie is, in fact, so relatable that me and my family always joke about how certain family members are exactly like characters in the movie. For me in particular, Russ, Clark's son, has always felt like a true depiction of somebody who is part of a very convoluted and chaotic family during the holidays. On the opposite side of that, we have cousin Eddie, played by Randy Quaid. Eddie is basically the essence of everything that National Lampoon's franchise is about. Having only seen the Vacation franchise series of Lampoon movies, I would say that his character is pretty consistent throughout all of these movies. And every other iteration that I've seen of him, he's relatively playing the same old kooky uncle. I think that he works great as the dumb but charming brother-in-law to Clark. Steals basically every scene that he's in. He's just so funny. Everything that he does just takes your attention away from any other character that's on the screen. And that's why I feel like he's basically the essence of what these National Lampoon movies are about. That's why you can imagine the shock that I had when I realized that there was a Christmas Vacation 2 Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure that came out in 2002. This is pretty much a straight to television movie that aired on NBC December 20th, 2003. It looks like this is the only Lampoon's movie that does not feature Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo as Clark and Ellen Griswold. The movie isn't on any streaming services, so I had to rent this movie. Enjoy that $4, YouTube. You know, I'm hoping to make that back someday. But yeah, we're gonna jump right into it. So, Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure starts out with Eddie working at a nuclear research facility where he's being tested on for who knows what. Like, it is literally unclear. He's got some sort of metal contraption on his head, and his coworker is a chimpanzee. So, yeah. They say they say in this movie that this is the sixth job that Eddie's lost after he's lost the farm, but I really do not see how he can afford this house in any world where he's lost six jobs within the last couple years. If you remember back to Christmas Vacation, he had to sell his farm, and he and his family are living in a RV home, and he's not able to afford a house, but yet here he is after his sixth job being able to afford a house like this. It really just does not make any sense. After we're introduced to his research facility, or his nuclear research facility job, we see him get called into his manager's office and fired. Eddie begs the manager to fire the monkey rather than him, but he's told that the chimpanzee is smarter than he is. And from there, we see Eddie go home and see his family and contemplating what he should do next. Nothing happens in this scene. Like they just stand around. They just stand around and talk and be like, "Wow, this is the sixth job that you've lost. Why don't you, why can't you keep a job?" It literally does nothing to further the plot. And then the next scene later that night, Eddie and Catherine are just laying in bed, and Eddie says that he has an idea. So he hops up. He's like, I'm gonna go take a warm bath," and then proceeds to destroy the entire bathroom with water that's bursting out of the pipes. And To me, it's still really unclear of what he's even saying in this moment. Like, is he saying that he's got an idea and that he's got to go think about that idea in the bathroom? Or is it just that his idea was that he needed, or his idea was that he wanted to go take a bath? Like, it's really unclear. And either one of those, it doesn't really it doesn't really amount to anything, because he just goes on and destroys the bathroom, and then he never talks about that again. So the next morning he goes back to his job at the nuclear research facility and basically just redoes the exact same scene as before. He just goes in there, begs for his job, says that he should be kept on instead of the monkey, and somewhere in there he offends the monkey and the monkey he somewhere in there he offends the chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee comes over and bites him in the ass, literally. And instead of suing them and pressing charges, Eddie gets gifted an all expense paid vacation to Hawaii. That's never really called Hawaii. That's called an island in the South Pacific, which I thought was, very interesting. So Eddie goes back home and tells his family to start packing for a vacation. In the meantime, in the next, about 5 minutes, Audrey from Christmas Vacation shows up, except it's not the Audrey from Christmas Vacation, it's the Audrey from the Vegas Vacation movies, which actually is the first time that a actor or actress has played the same kid character in these movies. So, even the little things, they don't really take account for what the continuity is and stuff in the whole series. We will get to that later. But so Audrey shows up, and then we have Uncle Nick show up, which is Eddie's uncle, whose family doesn't want to be around him during Christmas time, so he just shows up at Eddie's house. And this is the same actor that plays the Santa Claus in Elf. And this movie made me really, really not like this guy. I mean, this dude is such an unlikable character in this, and it almost made me not like Elf. But, Elf, another one of my favorite Christmas movies. But yeah, he was pretty bad in this movie, and frankly gave me the ick. So they all fly out to Hawaii with their dog Snot, who I'll say just is there just for a character in every scene to just be like, God, what smells? Literally, like, the dog doesn't do anything other than a character being like, God, something smells around here. What smells like shit around here? Which, I mean, that's one of my gripes with this movie and how it treats the continuity. And I'm not going to say that Snot is the greatest dog in all of cinema, but every quirk or characteristic that he had in Christmas Vacation that made me laugh was completely absent from this movie. So when Eddie and his family arrive at the island, they are met by a woman named Muka Lakamiki, who Eddie and every single other person in this movie just refuses to call her by her real name and just continues to butcher over and over again, which really gets tiring over time. She also has this weird role in the movie because at one point she says that she's with Eddie's company and wants him to feel totally accommodated on this trip, but yet she's on an island and she does nothing other than give tours on the island. So I don't really see how she could be a worker for his company. Like, that doesn't really make any sense. Shortly after they arrive, they see a plane land on the water, and an Australian dude named Jack comes out and tells them that he owns another hotel on another island. And that was basically what we heard of from that guy. That's basically like the only side character that they interact with the whole time, and it's very, very clear that they're putting something in here for later in the movie. So Muka decides to give them a tour around the island and gets them a charter boat so that they can go out on the ocean. And when they show up there, there's a note that says the boat captain's wife is pregnant and that they can take the boat out if they want to, but the captain is not there. So, not knowing how to drive the boat, Uncle Nick steps in and turns on the boat. And when they try to take off, the boat is tied to the dock. And I just want to go ahead and watch the scene with you. And I want you to go ahead and tell me in the comments what you think is going to happen in this scene. So he unties the boat. For me personally, I thought he was going to untie the dock. I thought he was going to untie the boat from the dock and fall into the water. All right. Let's go ahead and finish this clip. Nope. He steps off the boat and they just leave him there, right? And then they just cut to him on the boat. That doesn't make any sense. How does that make any sense? It's literally like, that's not even a joke. That's just bad. That's just bad continuity. So after Eddie tries to go fishing and hooks onto a shark with some terrible, terrible TV effects, they are taken out to the middle of the ocean and shipwrecked onto a bunch of rocks. And they see a island in the distance, and they jump off the boat, realize that it's only knee-high water, and then walk to the island. And as they arrive on the shore, they turn back and they see that the boat is floating away. So here's another thing, right? Is like they were just shipwrecked. So if they would have waited 10 minutes, theoretically, in the laws of this movie, they could have just got back on the boat. And even if the boat was drifting away, it's only knee-high water. They could have went out and got it. It just doesn't make any sense. So on the island, they basically gave up trying to be saved, and they settled for eating bananas that were on the trees on the island. And they started building a hut out of, trees and branches that they found laying around. How they cut down those trees, not clear, because, they didn't think about it. So they realize that they're going to be stuck all the way until Christmas. And they decide that they want to get something other than bananas to eat. So they know that there's some wild boar on the island because that's what Mooka told them. And so Eddie, Third, and Nick go out to hunt some boar. And this is where Eddie gets chased by a wild boar, chased up into a tree, and then Eddie finds a spear in the tree. Wait, hold on. Let me just pull this up. Let me see. So he does throw his spear, but it just happened to conveniently land right where he was stuck up in the tree. So he grabs the spear from the tree, and then the branch breaks and he falls on top of the boar, killing it, allowing them to get a Christmas dinner. But they don't ever eat it. It shows them making it. It shows the boar roasting over the fire, but they don't ever eat the food. What are we doing? What are we doing? It shows multiple scenes of them cooking and getting ready for a Christmas dinner, but it never happens. It never comes. They just skip right over it. So they go straight from roasting the boar and preparing dinner to instantly going to the next morning, and they're all opening gifts where they're just giving each other like sticks because they don't have any presents to give them, right? And so they all, are saying how much they love each other, how much they're thankful for each other, and then they go into the house that they built, and it all falls down. And that's basically like they didn't learn anything from that. They didn't learn anything from that other than, you can't just build a house out of sticks. And, they cut instantly from this. They cut instantly from this to Eddie on the side of a mountain, laying with his dog, and a plane flies over, right? Who's the one character in this movie that we know has a plane? Sure enough, he lands, he gets on shore, and he's there to rescue them. So their Christmas wishes happened, and they're saved, right? So man gets on the shore. They're all talking about how the resort that Jack owns is only on the other side of the island, and that they could have walked there. And then it just cuts to Eddie and Jack up on top of the hill where Eddie saw the plane in the first place. And they're up on the mountain and they're not doing anything. You'd think that he's there, go get in the airplane, ready to go. We're going home, right? No. They got to go move some fucking boulders up on the mountain. Like, they're up on the hill, just literally just moving huge boulders for no reason. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not even like a joke. They're literally just doing nothing. They're literally just doing nothing. And here's the crazy part, right? So they're lifting up this boulder, and the boulder falls on Jack's foot, and he kind of stumbles a little bit. And then Eddie grabs his hat that he's wearing, and it looks like he's strangling him. And it could look like he was just saving him from a fall, but like, I legitimately thought that Eddie was trying to murder this man. I mean, I totally think that he would have been fine if Eddie hadn't grabbed onto him. Like, he would have lived, he would have been fine. But if we're going with this narrative that Eddie's trying to kill this man, why did he do it? Why does Eddie want to kill this dude? That's his only way out of this island. And to answer that question, I think the answer is right in the storytelling. I mean, Eddie's a man that just wants his family to be together, and he wants his family to love him. And over the last day, he was shown so much appreciation that he doesn't ever want to leave the island. So I truly believe that there's a darker version of this movie where Eddie, kills Jack, and then just keeps his family on the island, and it doesn't let him leave, like what was it, Lord of the Flies style. So I think that's a pretty sick and twisted way that Eddie could have felt more connected to his family. And I think that he probably would be willing to do anything to keep that ball rolling. So I wouldn't put it past him. But instead, we see Jack fall down the cliff, and he gets comforted by Audrey at the bottom. And then it shows them all worried about him, and then they all somehow get in the plane. So now we're in the plane, and it's pretty clear that Jack is fading in and out of consciousness, and Eddie's going to have to take over and fly this plane. So he gets on the radio, and, this is the longest short plane scene that I've ever seen, like, there was no reason why this scene should have taken 8 minutes long. In comparison, the flight in the movie from where they live in Chicago to Hawaii took 3 minutes in the movie. This took 8. In the trip from boating to the other island, and Eddie doing like the whole fishing for a shark thing, that took 4 minutes. So the fact that this plane trip took 8 minutes is fucking wild. This is the longest hour and 22 minutes of my life. The rest of the movie is just irrelevant. I mean, Eddie gets offered his job back and leaves it to take his chimpanzee coworker to be co-pilots in, I have no idea what. Like, who in their right mind would employ him as a pilot? But where did this movie go wrong? Well, I think part of the reason this movie went wrong is because it just simply doesn't make any sense. I mean, the reason why the movie failed had nothing to do with the comedy being outdated. Don't get me wrong, we could talk about the racism, the sexism, the misogyny in this movie all day, but I always tend to chalk that up to, it's just a thing of the times. But I do think this movie didn't work because it just didn't have any identity. I think this is a group of characters that shouldn't be the center of a movie. The thing that makes Christmas Vacation special, like I talked about in the beginning, is the way that it can exist in the real world and have relatable characters and a consistent story and a consistent storyline throughout the movie. I mean, the movie literally starts with Clark talking about his Christmas bonus, and that's the crux of his whole character throughout the whole story. And in this movie, there was just no point where I thought that this had like a through line that this was gonna amount to anything in the end. I mean, there was even a part where I forgot that it was even supposed to be set during Christmas, and so did the characters. I mean, they literally, there was literally a point where they were like, what are we even doing here? This, like, it's supposed to be Christmas. There's zero continuity in the tiniest things, like moving from one scene to another. Those kinds of things drive me crazy. And I think that this movie was a learning moment for everyone involved. I think that the producers of the movie decided they needed to shelve this franchise for another decade or some. The actors probably realized the moment that what they were doing is bad, and I think that all that translates. Except for Fred Willard, you can always count on him to give his all and give a great performance. Rest in peace, King. And most importantly, me, who I learned the most important lesson of: just because one of your favorite Christmas movies has a sequel, it does not mean that you have to watch it and waste an hour and 22 minutes of your life that you will never get back. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time for another video. Deuces.